guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another modern magazine thing. Because this time we're going to be looking at Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer issue number 47. Now, I've no fantastic stories of how I got this issue this time, because the roadworks I've been complaining about in my hometown, which were blocking all the deliveries and led to me missing issue number 46, are now over. We can travel around freely and deliveries are on time. So I went into the shop and I got this one. So let's just blast on and have a look at Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer issue number 47. So, this is Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer issue number 47. Now, let's chuck the bag to the side, as we usually do. And we can see we don't have dice this time. Yay! Excitement. We have a small book, and we have a pencil, a mechanical pencil. A razor on the end. Very fine piece of lead in it. But a fairly cheap mechanical pencil. No branding on it at all. Now, I have to admit, if they were giving us a pencil, I'd much rather would have given us a wooden pencil. Here's one I got for Sport Relief a couple of years ago, a charity thing. And I'd much rather have a black pencil with the Dungeons & Dragons logo on it. But I suppose it's fine. And what's this book we've got? Well, it's just a notebook, a lined notepad. But I kind of like that. I like having a pencil and a notepad. It's far better than the endless dice we've been getting. Will they give us some blank pieces of paper for mapping, you know, hex grids and stuff like that? Things which gamers kind of like having at the table. That'd be lovely if they start giving us gifts like that instead of yet more and more and more dice. And onto the magazine. New and exclusive adventure, Sorcerer's Origin Wild Magic, choose your group patrons, combat feats from healer to duelist, DMs how to tailor games to your players. Going inside, got the contents page as usual, telling us that the Adventure 5, issue 47, is the Darklake Regatta. Nothing particularly more interesting in there, except it shows that Sorcerer's Origins is 4 parts. So 8 pages of this, a large chunk, is just Sorcerer's Origins. But they're quite nice. I'm not going to criticize too loudly about those. We'll come to it as we go through. So first of all, we've got Sage Advice, Group Patrons. So what's a group patron? Explaining that it's somebody that's going to hire the party. They're going to be somebody who adds advantage to the party, but hires them for missions, provides security, the lord or king, or just whatever, the head of the guild or whatever that hires the players. Also mentions about players being able to form their own sort of patrons by creating an organisation. So perhaps they're a shipping guild or an adventurers guild or something like that. Talks through patrons being quest givers. And talks about giving them perks, using a point system called Renown as a way of track how well regarded the characters are with their patron. And then another wonderful article, Have the Conversation. Talking to your players to find out what they enjoy in a campaign can help increase their engagement. So it talks through basically having a conversation about the different elements you're putting into your game, what the players are enjoying, what you can improve on. All very useful information. Games Masters don't need to get it right. And one of the best Games Masters I know asks at the end of every session, what did you enjoy tonight? And then takes it into account in future weeks. But we cover exploration, social interactions. Perhaps the players love chatting with NPCs. Perhaps they love puzzles. Perhaps it's combat they like. Maybe they just love rolling dice. So it goes into all of those. Then we've got combat feats, part 5, going through healer, armor proficiency feats, lightly armored, moderately armored, heavily armored, and armor mastery feats, medium armor master, heavy armor master. Become an armored mage. And then we've got the large section on wild magic. Now, while this is Sorcerer's Origins, so useful for the backgrounds of your sorcerer, wild magic's a nice thing to introduce. It's something I don't particularly bother with in my campaigns, but it's a very useful section. It's definitely fleshing out the world. So we've got part 1, where we talk about wild magic surge, tides of chaos. Part 2, where we get a large table of effects from wild magic surges. Part 3, where we get some spells and things. Surge table might be responsible for a few new spells being cast on your allies. So it suggests the way spells might work. They might be polymorphed into a sheep. And we've got some more here, creatures, which are affected by wild magic or created by wild magic. Unicorns. And then finally we come on to the adventure, the Darklake Regatta. So the last time I mentioned one of these adventures, it was when the players were down in the tomb of the Dwarf King getting the hammer. And they've now succeeded in that. I don't know how that part had ended because I missed last issue, but now they're on their journey out. It's not that they've achieved their goal and suddenly that's the end of the adventure. They now have to make the journey home. So they come back to the lake that they'd crossed. But at this time, there are a bunch of grey dwarves, Duragar, having a regatta. They're having a boating competition on the lake, and the players will have to get involved. Maybe they'll steal a boat, maybe they'll get involved in the regatta, one of the grey dwarves will ask them to sabotage a rival, so there's going to be an encounter. And it's pretty interesting. I don't think it makes a huge amount of sense, but it's kind of fun. And throwing it into a big Underdark campaign, that's kind of cool. So we've got big in the encounter, shore features, there's food stores and bookmakers, and really interesting to have what's generally considered a sort of evil species, the Grey Dwarves, having fun. That's kind of cool. An unusual proposition where they're propositioned to sabotage one of the Grey Dwarves' rivals, entering the regatta, starters' orders, the race rules, where they steal a boat, and then the rules for the race itself, where they're going through different legs of it, shallow water, monstrous wakes, a monster collision, because our plesiosaurus living in the lake is disturbed by all this boating. And ending the encounter, what happens? The Grey Dwarf will be upset if they haven't sabotaged his rival, but perhaps they've done fantastically. Maybe if they've won a medal. And it can be used to gain advantage on charisma checks with Grey Dwarves they meet in the future. Oh, I won a medal in the Darklake Regatta. We've got a stat block for a Plesiosaurus, Duragar, and then a race tracker to keep track of all of the people racing and how they're doing in each of the legs of the race. So, that's kind of cool. I haven't commented on the cover. The cover last time I thought was a bit muddy, although it was a nice bright daylit picture. This time it's darker, it's indoors, it's obviously in an inn or something like that, but the artwork is a lot more detailed. So the magazine's pretty good. We've got a lot of detail in there. We've got a lot of stuff for games masters. Even the stuff for players is pretty useful. We've got a nice little notebook. And we've got a bit of a cheap pencil. But it's a pencil. I consider this issue a success. It's got loads of stuff for games masters. It's got some nice extra stuff which aren't endless amounts of dice. Thumbs up on this issue. I really like it. So that was Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer issue number 47. And some great stuff in there. Far better than the last issue I covered, number 45. Because most of this issue is usable. Instead of being dead pages where they're going on about character class and subclasses, which are very unlikely to be used because there's so many subclasses that it's very unlikely that somebody's going to play the exact ones in some issues. Some of them will get used, but most are going to go to waste. But this time, we've got Dungeon Master pages, which are really, really useful. And even the pages on Wild Magic, while focused towards Sorcerer player characters, are also very, very useful for Dungeon Masters. This is some great stuff. I don't think there's any dead or wasted pages in this at all. The adventure itself is quite interesting because it's so different. Going to a Duragar regatta, rather than just down another tomb, just fighting some more monsters. There's something else going on. They're having a race. And that's a lovely introduction to players and Dungeon Masters as well. So everything within the magazine is darn good this week. And although the mechanical pencil's a bit useless, it's a bit plasticky and cheap, it's a mechanical pencil. You're going to get some use out of that. And I really, really like the notepad. I'm a big user of notepads, both in when I'm playing games, but also in my business. So I can imagine, even if I don't use that during games, I'm going to be going into business meetings at some point in the near future carrying a Dungeons & Dragons notebook. But I really like the fact that they've been more imaginative this time. So they've come up with something which is very, very useful, both to players and dungeon masters. You could do this same one a few times. So you've got notes for the dungeon master, notes for the players. And you can do things like hex grids, mapping paper, etc., etc. Things that players and dungeon masters will actually use, rather than just giving us more and more and more dice. We've got so many dice, somebody counted it up and it's over 200 by this point. That's just ridiculous, even if you're handing out one of the tins to every player. I think we've still had more than most groups have players. Anyway, I'm really enthusiastic about this one. I'm looking forward to the next one. We will see what they do. But, as usual, I think I've been wittering on for quite long enough. So thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.